So in this video, we're going to talk about wiring the Vigilant sensor to our first cell. In the previous video, we installed our cable clamp over here. That's on the positive charger cable. Wiring the first cell is a little bit different than the rest of the cells because it includes this cable clamp. So, there's some diagrams and things in the manual. Those are going to be important when you're doing this in the field, but this video is at least going to give you an explanation of what's going on here. So, from our first charger cable clamp, the wire comes down right here, and this is at the actual Vigilant sensor. So these two wires are going to crimp down on the connector on the sensor. Additionally, we're going to have new wiring harnesses from the negative and the positive terminal. For this battery, we have a standoff bolt with two fast-on tab connectors. These tab connectors are going to attach to the negative post. Every negative post is going to have two connections. For the positive post, we just have a single tab connector. I'm going to start routing these wires up from my sensor. I'm not going to connect them yet, but I'm just going to run them there so that they're in the correct place. And I'm going between the battery cells here. It's really up to you how you want to manage your cables. We're just, going between these batteries keeps the wires out of the way and makes the installation look neater. A neat installation is very important. So there's our cables ready to go. All we have to do is plug them in. Before I do that, I want to talk about two different connector styles that we have, and we'll have a separate video that kind of shows how these connect. The first is a C-clamp. So this clamp actually is designed to fit on a battery post. This battery doesn't have exposed square posts, but if it did, we may opt to put this clamp on there. It simply sits on top of the clamp, you screw it in, and just like this positive tab connector, we have one red cable that's going to go back to our sensor. The other clamp is our overbolt clamp. And so this clamp goes on top of a bolt head. You may have situations, especially on like a VRLA front-facing battery, where you can't really access the post. There is no standoff option. You don't want to use tab washers for some reason, so you have this option. It allows you to install the system without taking it offline. And again, there'll be a separate video on how to install this and what it looks like when it's actually on the battery.
Next, we're going to talk about crimping the wires to the connections for the sensor. The first wire I'm going to pull through and make sure I have here is the one from the cable clamp, which is right here. The next one I need is the one from the main positive, which is here. And then the next one is the black cased wire from the negative side of the first cell. The gray cased wire from the first cell is going to go to sensor number 2. So I'm going to pull that one out and place it off to the side. I'm going to make the connections on the post. So your red wire, your single wired gray case is going to go to the positive of the cell. You have the negative tab connections. There's a gray and a black heat shrinked connection here. The black connection is the sensing connection, and you want that to be on the top tab washer. And then your voltage connection you want to be on the bottom. Now we're going to talk about crimping wires to the sensor. We're going to use our IDC connector and our IDC crimp gun. There's an arrow on it that'll show you the direction that the connector is going to go through as we're crimping. So you slide it in to the first click. That'll be the first spot here. You can set this aside. So now you have your gray connections. The gray cased wire is what we call the gray connections. This one has your red and black wire in the gray case. That's what's coming from the cable clamp. This one is a gray case, but it has red wire, and that's coming from the first positive, the positive. Then you have the gray cased red wire that comes from the positive side of the cell. Cut that, give it a little extra. So that you have your wires where you're gonna insert the IDC connection at. Use the wire stripper to cut back some of the gray casing. For this, you're gonna go gray, red, and then black for the order of crimping. So you crimp that in, and when you release, it'll move to the next spot. Once you have all the wires crimped, you can put the white cover back on. Just set it aside. You don't want to plug the connectors into the sensor until we get to the phase 2 part of initializing. We can do the black cased wires next. It's the same steps. You cut that to fit, and then cut that casing back a little bit. You take your IDC connector, just like we did on the other one. Slide that into your gun. And with this one, it's going to go, the order of crimping is going to go gray, blue, and then black. So once you have that crimped, you can put the cover on this one. Set this one to the side also, and then move on to the next cell.